All right, last of our demos for this week. We're doing the beaded lace over on the hip. So I very quickly laid in something sort of kind of like what our under layer would be. So you do want to paint that sort of as if it were the full skirt, and then we're going to lay the beaded lace on top of it. Now, I did go ahead and put in my frisket before I laid that down. I grouped the frisket into very, very small dots by, you can kind of dip off of a sharp point of something. You can use a colored pencil or even a mechanical pencil for it. Laid the skirt over it, and I used that frisket and those dots to sort of shape where the beading gathers along the scallop, where it creates the different shapes. I am now taking the color, the base local color of that beaded area, which is sort of a deep navy. I'm choosing a medium tone within that and starting to dab kind of shapes and shadows and around on it. I'm then taking a little bit more purpley tone because it leans towards this like lavender as it comes towards the light, and dabbing that into some of our deeper highlights. The reason I'm dabbing instead of carrying it smoothly is it helps create more of effect of beading and that there's textures there. So I'm just like almost stippling it in. Some are bigger, some are smaller. That's a nice effect of having the round brush. I'm then using a soft clean brush to soften a few areas with clean water on it and just a little damp to begin adding some extra like thin washes behind it. I just did that so that there's areas where as it folds away from itself, it gets a little more opaque. But overall, we want to be able to see that skirt color coming through underneath it. So that's why we're not painting it in big flat areas. Darkening this outside edge so that the beading will pop forward a little bit. Things are drying pretty quick as I'm working because it's kind of not a lot of water on any of this. I'm working with a lot of paint, pretty heavy opacity, and not a lot of water on my brush so that I have control. Otherwise, I wouldn't be making little tiny dots like that. I'd be making great big ones. So it's a pretty dry brush. I've got a little bit of black mixed into my blue with a little bit of purple, and I'm using that to create just a couple areas that have extra depth between them. So what creates the beading is a high contrast between the light and the dark. So we're gonna go ahead and pull up that frisket. Now the overall effect is like a little too graphic, and each of those whites seems the same amount of white. So the frisket has that effect. Like we talked about, it can be kind of like a punch in the face compared to the rest of your drawing. So I'm mixing a little bit of the turquoise color of the skirt underneath, and I'm dabbing it in around those highlights as if it were reflecting the light around it, and to soften some of them. Drop the value of a view. I'm adding a little more blue to it so that it's somewhere in between the turquoise of the skirt and the blue of the lace. And just pushing some back into space. So as they get a little less bright on the highlight scale, they also recede into space a little bit better. They sort of feel stacked now, leaving some of them bright white, but certainly not the same kind of bright white. So this has a really nice kind of twinkly effect right now. We've reached something very workable. I'm going to keep kind of tweaking it, adding in a few extra dark areas. And I'm picking up a little extra like thin, transparent purple to bounce in some of the highlights. And doing some more thin washes to sort of build out and soften the edges of my textures I created earlier. I am going to wait on this to entirely dry, and then we're going to do a little bit of lifting. So as this dries, I'm going to very softly lift out with my paintbrush a few areas that I want to feel like there's more transparency as the lace shows the skirt underneath it. Those got a little dark to me, so this keeps it feeling soft and kind of like soft focus. It's hazy. So that lifting out technique just means I use a wet brush, but not like damp, like feels cold to your skin, doesn't drip. And a soft back and forth motion. You can let it stand, the water stand on your paper for a second, and then just drop something on top of it to pick the moisture up, and you'll have lifted back to that original color of the skirt underneath. And that is all called done. All right, hope that helps.